This is VOA News. Reporting via remote, I'm Richard Green. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has survived a dramatic no-confidence vote. Members of Prime Minister Johnson's own Conservative Party voted Monday to retain the embattled leader by a vote of 211 to 148. AP's Ed Donahue reports.
Johnson has had trouble shaking off revelations of boozy parties by him and his staff in 2020 and 2021 that flouted coronavirus restrictions imposed on others.
What we're going to do now is take the opportunity to unite and deliver.
But a growing number of conservatives feel Johnson is now a liability who will doom them to defeat in the next election. The opposition agrees.
The British public are fed up with a Prime Minister who promises big but never delivers.
Keir Starmer is head of the Labour Party.
Fed up with a Prime Minister who's presided over a culture of lies and law-breaking at the heart of government.
Johnson's margin of victory was less than predecessor Theresa May's vote in 2018. She was forced to resign 6 months later. I'm Ed Donahue.
Most political observers had predicted Johnson would survive the challenge due to the absence of a clear successor. In the U.S., 5 members of a far-right group are facing serious criminal charges in connection with the January 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. AP's Mike Kempen has the latest on that story.
The former top leader of the far-right extremist group and other members have been charged with seditious conspiracy for what federal prosecutors say was a coordinated attack on the U.S. Capitol. Former Proud Boys chairman Henry Enrique Tarrio and 4 others linked to the group were previously charged with different conspiracy counts. More than 36 people charged in the Capitol siege have been identified by federal authorities as Proud Boys leaders, members, or associates. Mike Hempen, Washington.
This is VOA News. 11 members or associates of the anti-government Oath Keepers militia group, including its founder and leader, Stuart Rhodes, were also indicted back in January on seditious conspiracy charges. The new indictments come just days before a special congressional committee will begin hearings on the January 6th insurrection. AP correspondent Rita Foley says the public has been told to expect major revelations.
A special House committee opens hearings this week on the insurrection and former President Donald Trump's part in it. Beginning in prime time on Thursday, the committee is setting out to establish the historical record of the event, trying to get to the bottom of the attack that day in 2021 by Trump supporters. One aim, to establish whether then-President Trump's acts were criminal and whether that might mean the prosecution of an ex-president. Congressman Jamie Raskin, a Maryland Democrat on the committee, said in April, the hearings will tell a story that will really blow the roof off the House. I'm Rita Foley.
In the U.S. state of New York, residents under the age of 21 are now prohibited from buying semi-automatic rifles under legislation signed into law Monday by Governor Kathy Hochul. New York is one of the first states in the U.S. to enact major gun control initiatives following a wave of deadly mass shootings, including 10 people who were killed at a grocery store in a black neighborhood in Buffalo, New York on May 14th. Governor Hochul says the legislation shows New York State intends to lead the nation in protecting its citizens against gun violence.
When we see loopholes, we close them. When we see laws that need to be strengthened, we strengthen them. And if anyone tries to evade our laws, we stop them. Because this is a moment of reckoning for us as New Yorkers and as Americans.
The governor also signed a measure that revises the state's red flag law, which allows courts to temporarily take away guns from people who might be a threat to themselves or others. Repeating our top story, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has survived a dramatic no-confidence vote. Members of Prime Minister Johnson's Conservative Party voted Monday to retain the embattled leader by a vote of 211 to 148. Johnson had come under fire after revelations that he and his staff repeatedly threw parties at his official residence at 10 Downing Street despite COVID-19 restrictions imposed on Britain at the height of the pandemic. You can find more on this story on our website, voanews.com. We also have an app you can download. Just search for VOA News. Reporting via remote, I'm Richard Green for VOA News.
This is VOA News. Reporting by remote, I'm Joe Ramsey. As U.S. lawmakers work to reach a bipartisan gun safety deal, they're being challenged by both relatives of shooting victims and by Hollywood. AP Washington correspondent Sagar Magani reports.
What are you doing?
Garnell Whitfield Jr.'s 86-year-old mom was killed in a Buffalo supermarket.
To imagine the faces of your mothers as you look at mine.
His testimony to a Senate panel came as Democrat Chris Murphy worked with GOP negotiators on a gun measure he admits won't come close to what's needed to curb the epidemic.
But the American people are looking for progress.
Senate Republican Chief Mitch McConnell won't predict how many of his members will back a deal. Step one is to reach one.
I hope that'll be sooner rather than later.
At the exact time McConnell was speaking at the Capitol, actor Matthew McConaughey was at the White House, a Uvalde, Texas native and gun owner pleading with lawmakers.
Find a middle ground, the place where most of us Americans live anyway.
Sagar Magani, Washington.
38 persons have been confirmed dead after the attack Sunday on a church in southwestern Nigeria, according to the Catholic Church where the incident happened. The church said the figure previously excluded the dead bodies taken to private hospitals. Nigeria's National Emergency Management Services earlier said 22 bodies were counted at the morgue after the attack at St. Francis Catholic Church, far fewer than the death toll of 50 given earlier by Tuesday lawmakers. The exact number of those dead is still not clear, as some were taken away by family members for private burials, residents said. Find more on these stories and the rest of the day's news on our website, voanews.com, or follow us on the VOA mobile app. This is VOA News. UN agencies are warning of famine in Somalia and a surge of child deaths across the Horn of Africa if their appeals for urgently needed funds to save the lives of hundreds of thousands of hungry, malnourished children remain unmet. Lisa Schlein reports for VOA from Geneva.
The Horn of Africa is experiencing its fourth consecutive year of failed rains, a climate event not seen in at least 40 years. If the drought persists, the World Food Program warns as many as 20 million people will be suffering from acute hunger by the end of the year. UNICEF reports more than 1.7 million children across Ethiopia, Kenya, and Somalia are in urgent need of treatment for severe acute malnutrition, the deadliest form of the condition. Rania Dagash Kamara is UNICEF Deputy Regional Director, Eastern and Southern Africa.
We have an estimated 386,000 children in Somalia who are in desperate need of treatment for life-threatening severe acute malnutrition.
More than 250,000 people died in the Somali famine of 2011, half of them children under age 5. Dagash Kamara says children are dying from a combination of malnutrition and killer diseases such as measles and cholera. She says the drought has killed crops and livestock and dried up water sources. Children are starving and do not have the defenses to fight off the deadly impact of malnutrition and disease. The agencies are appealing for critical support from the G7, which will meet in Germany later this month. They say the G7 advanced countries have it within their power to stave off a catastrophe that need not and must not happen. Lisa Schlein for VOA News, Geneva.
Investigators commissioned by the UN's top human rights body say tensions between Palestinians and Israelis are underpinned by Israel's quote-unquote perpetual occupation of Palestinian areas with no apparent intention of ending it. The findings released Tuesday came in the first report by a commission of inquiry created last year by the UN-backed Human Rights Council in the aftermath of an 11-day war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza in May 2021. Recapping our top story, the son of an 86-year-old woman killed in the racist Buffalo, New York mass shooting is calling on the U.S. Congress to act against domestic terrorism. His emotional testimony came against the backdrop of intensifying Senate negotiations on a gun safety bill. Find more on these stories at voanews.com. Reporting by remote, I'm Joe Ramsey.